Black Widow finally hits theaters as trailers for Disney's Encanto and Marvel's What If are released, and YouTuber Chris Stuckmann is set to make his feature film debut. I'm Joe Acierno.
And I'm Darius Delsoin. This is Cinema Unchained.
All right, folks, welcome to what is now episode 23 of Cinema Unchained. Now, we got a great show for you all, but before we get into our thoughts on the new trailer for Disney's Encanto, hope I'm saying that correctly, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, and so much more, and follow our social media pages in that description. Now, this past week, Disney released a trailer for one of its upcoming films, Encanto, and it basically is about a girl who's the only one in her family born without any kind of special magical powers. And all I have to say to that is, ouch. Ouch. So I'm just curious, Darius, what did you think about this trailer when you first saw it?
This is actually very similar to how I felt about Luca with that first trailer. I was instantly like, I'm in. This one, I'm in the same boat. I'm in. I'm really curious to see where all of this goes. Absolutely looks beautiful. Stephanie Beatriz, I love her as an actress. I think she's gonna do great in this role. So I'm thoroughly and very excited to see this movie. Just because of how it looks. This sort of magical aspect to it. Like it speaks to me on all the levels, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, I just based on the concept alone, again, just like this one, like I feel like in a lot of movies you have the one person that's like, magical or special somehow, and they have a hard time fitting in with the people around them. But now the shoe is on the other foot, so I think that's an interesting swap there. And even just from a visual standpoint too, like obviously, this is the same, I guess, computer animation technology that Disney uses for, films like Frozen and stuff. But at the same time, this one still, and I don't know if it's because of its setting, but Encanto, again, like I said, I hope I'm saying that correctly, but Encanto definitely looks more colorful. And again, I think that has in large part to do with its setting, but still, there's definitely a visual aspect to this so far that's very much appealing to me. There's so far feels like it has like a rhythm to it too. And again, that could just be the trailer trying to make us feel a certain type of way, but at the same time, when you have Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's going to be writing or has written music, has written songs for this particular film, you're kind of expecting something strong in the music area.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially after coming off of In the Heights and just how powerful that the music in that film was, and how it really just elevated the emotional aspects of certain moments in that film. I think Lin-Manuel, when I saw Lin-Manuel's name on, I was like, whoa, okay, he's really moving up there. He's moving up there quicker than I initially thought. Because it's a Disney film. The fact that he's on a Disney film, and it's an animated Disney film that loves music, I think is absolutely great. And so I'm really curious to see what he brings to the table as well in the music department. And again, I'm just like Luca, I'm completely sold from the beginning. I want to see a bit more from trailers, but that is it. Don't spoil too much. And I'll be in the theaters for this.
Yeah, same here. And again, just with everything with Lin-Manuel Miranda, we have gotten to see exactly what he can do for a Disney film, because he wrote a lot of the music for Moana as well, and that movie has a terrific soundtrack. So we have that. And then even just going back to the concept, again, one of the things that I thought was really funny about, again, this could just be the trailer, was this girl who's the only one in her family that doesn't have any magical power. She gets roasted like multiple times in the trailer, which I'm like, oh shit, that's
yeah.
Like the way that they kind of like put her down, like, and maybe it sounds like a mean to say, it was kind of funny. I'm gonna be honest. Like the father has like the gift basket, like like what do you call it, like the non-special gift basket or some shit like that. Like holy shit. Oh man, I couldn't think of that if I tried. But honestly, this does look really entertaining. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure there's going to be like a sort of like emotional and moral message there about learning to be happy with who we are, or really finding the magic in yourself when there really isn't any obvious magic there. So again, I'm definitely very excited for this one. It's currently set to come out on November 24th, and I hope it stays to that particular release date. And again, just for all you guys that are listening, again, if you watch the trailer for Encanto, if you haven't, then I think you should. But if you have, what did you think of it? You know what to do with those thoughts. you leave them wherever you can, whatever comment section you can find in relation to Cinema Unchained. All right. Moving forward, Black Widow finally, and I must emphasize, finally came out in the theaters. And the film, of course, for those of you who somehow don't know, this film takes place in between the events of Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War. And it follows Natasha Romanoff, a.k.a. Black Widow, as she fights to take down the Red Room, the secret organization that kidnapped her when she was younger and forcibly trained her into a killer. The film stars Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, and Rachel Weisz. Darius, you and I went to see this together with a couple of buddies of ours. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, to be honest, for me, I kind of walked out heavily mixed because there are elements I really liked, and there, to me, it really felt as if the first 25-30 minutes, I was like, yes, this is cool, I'm liking it, this is great, it feels different, it looks a bit different, and then it kind of went into the rabbit, and then it kind of just went downhill for me. I think like some of the pacings later on in the movie completely just it felt rushed in areas. There's a reveal that I wasn't too fond of and I wasn't happy about on multiple levels. I came out mixed, if not heavily disappointed. And this was a MCU film I was really excited for, because to me it's about time. She had her own movie. It felt as if they're taking inspiration from Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier, and when I say inspiration, I mean heavily inspiration from that movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I wasn't a big fan of it. I think they could have done more. The solid first act, like that first act, I thought was really solid, was really strong, and really made
good.
me be like, okay, this could be something. But then it started to feel like every other MCU movie, and I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing, but at the same time, it's like that tonal shift was just so drastic and such a huge thing from that first act to a bit later that to me I was just underwhelmed, and I was like, that you could have done more. Not too fond with how you handle certain elements of certain reveals and even the third act, like to the point where I was honestly kind of becoming numb at that point in the film. Considering that this is a 2-hour 14-minute film, this felt short to me and didn't feel as quite finished in certain areas, including certain VFX departments. But other than that, again, for me, I was underwhelmed. I was kind of heavily disappointed, and I expected and I wished for more. So,
I definitely, overall, this was at the very least a good time. I'm not 100% sure if it was worth like all the delays. I mean, when it comes to like the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, like these aren't, unless it's like one of the Avengers movies, like the vast majority of like the single films, as much as I enjoy watching them while I'm watching them, they're not usually films I anticipate too heavily. Like Dune as a film, I'm really anticipating. Black Widow wasn't really the case as much. Like anytime I heard about Black Widow getting delayed, I'm like, all right, that sucks. But when I heard about Dune getting delayed like almost a year, I'm like, fuck. But again, going back to Black Widow, I mean, I guess I didn't go into it waiting for it, really expecting too much, because at the end of the day, I felt this before I started watching the film, and I felt like this after watching the film. Black Widow would have been so much more impactful if it came out before Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Because as much as this movie definitely has a lot going for it. There are a few things that definitely wear it down and weigh it down, but there is a decent amount that this movie has going for it. But to at least build into some of the points that this movie does have going for it, there are the cast alone, the 4 main cast members that I mentioned at the beginning of this review. They all do a good job. Scarlett Johansson, she's fine. She doesn't really bring anything new to the role in terms of her acting, but as far as like Natasha Romanoff's backstory overall, that's really put on full display in that opening act and those opening credit scenes, which I thought was a particularly great montage. I love that rendition of Smells Like Teen Spirit. Really put into a lot of perspective as far as like what she's been through, the traumatic events that she's been through. But I gotta say the standout of the entire film was Florence Pugh as her quote sister, Yelena Bolova. She's absolutely hilarious. She's very witty. She's got a very dry sense of humor, but at the same time, there are a lot of scenes where she's actually very emotionally effective. So props to her. Rachel Weisz is fine, but like, she's kind of there. She's like the quote mother figure. Like, again, she does what she has to do, not really much else. And David Harbour as Alexei, the quote father figure. He was really funny. He was a great comic relief. But the more that I really think about what he actually did in the movie, like the character and stuff, like what he actually did, he wasn't very useful for the team at all.
No,
right? Is it just me?
No, that's exactly where I felt. Yeah.
That was such a waste.
It's such a waste because it's like, I like Red Guardian as a character from the comics. And when I heard David Harbour, I was like, okay, cool. I like him. I think he can do a good job. But then as I'm starting to watch the movie, I was like, oh, he's just a regular MCU comic relief. And that's where, to me, it kind of went downhill a bit. I mean, it kind of went downhill a bit before then, but even still, I was just like, like, are you just gonna be dumb this entire time, or like it was just...
honestly, yeah. And again, like I said, that's why it's such a wasted potential, because he has some awesome power, and I think that he, in a lot of ways, could have been a very redemptive character. Because like again, like there's like the beginning of the film where they kind of show him like being a good protector, a solid protector of his quote family, right? Because how the story starts is that Natasha's quote family was a ploy by the Soviet Union to infiltrate the U.S., which again, that part of the backstory, I thought that was really cool. But then you have David Harbour's character again being the sort of protector, which again, like, serves really well. But then fast forward a couple decades, he spends a couple decades in jail, and he's a bumbling idiot. He's fucking useless. He's practically useless. He has this amazing power behind him, this amazing potential as a character, and they wasted him. And again, I don't think that's so much, that's more on the writing for the film. David Harbour, again, like performance-wise, acting-wise, he did fine. He did really, really great. Like I said, he was a great comic relief. Like, I at least believed him. But as far as like his character, like it was a waste. It was really such a waste. What'd you think of the villain, Dreykov? Because he's like the head of the Red Room. He was fine, but like he's not really memorable. Like he joins like the long list of Marvel Cinematic Universes that really just aren't memorable. They're really just expendable, if anything.
Yeah, honestly, I forgot the villain until you mentioned it.
So that answers my question.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't... Even to the villain, to me, this really felt as if they were trying to push the theme of the movie more than some of the character development, and this is where it also kind of fumbled a bit, because it's like, yes, I like the theme you're going for, but at the same time, it was like, this kind of just feels forced in a certain way where it felt unnecessary. And I thought that there could have been a more interesting way to do either the villain, a mission of the villain, and how he ties into a certain another villain at the same time. And I just wasn't, I was a bit mixed on that. I don't really care about Dreykov. He's just whatever. Like, I really don't care about that. Him as a villain per se. I honestly, he was a pretty, like you said, they're expendable. Like they bring a villain in there and then they toss him out or whatever and that sort of thing. Whereas in this movie, I think it would have been more effective to use the other character, Taskmaster, more than this higher head, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, I started getting numb at that point.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like who Taskmaster actually is, like I didn't have a problem with that reveal and like that sort of connection to like everybody, to like the guy that's running the show. Yeah. But just like as a villain overall, like I'm gonna forget about Dreykov in a week. I only remembered him for this review, and that's about it. But I think in terms of like the aftermath, like the resolution, and we went to go see this with our buddy William, and he made a great point too. Like it could have been longer and it could have had more impact. And I gotta agree with him. So when you talk about the certain pacing issues for this movie, I definitely understand that, particularly with the end. But it's weird, like even throughout like a big chunk of the movie, like the act 2, I guess you'd say, It felt a bit long, and I don't know for sure if that's just in part because I had to pee about 30 minutes into the film. But I don't know. It's weird. Like, I look back on this movie, and even though I don't know what exactly I would cut out, I'm still looking back on this. I'm like, I'm not sure this had to be over 2 hours long. I don't think it did.
Yeah.
But what I will say too is this movie, at the very least, it's funny throughout. It's definitely very entertaining. Again, the entertainment factor, I think, comes in large part to Florence Pugh and David Harbour.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, the action sequences, those are really solid too. Like, those really threw me for a loop. Like, those are some of like the better action sequences from like the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I've seen in a while. So props to them for that.
Yeah.
Especially when there's a lot of in the movie that like kind of drags it down a bit. The action really saves it, especially considering how long the movie is too.
Yeah, and like I said, this borrowed heavily from Winter Soldier, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Almost everything from the fight scenes, even some story elements. But like, you know, because as I was when I went into this, I was like, okay, the action seems up to par on Winter Soldier, and I very much enjoy that. And yeah, I absolutely love the action, the fight choreography. And I do have to say, even though we did talk about Dreykov, Taskmaster for me, in the beginning, I was enjoying this character. Towards the end, I was not. So, like, it was such, like, that's why for me, I'm so disjointed with this film, because it's like, there's certain elements, I was like, man, this first act, first 2 acts, whatever it may be, you know, like, really, it was really the first 45 minutes. I was really into it. And then after that, I was kind of like, eh. And so, yeah, definitely agree with you with the action. They borrowed heavily from Winter Soldier to the point where I'm not sure if that was a good idea to a certain extent. Because as I'm watching, I'm like, some of these story beats are also similar to Winter Soldier and how they went about that, how Captain America went about his journey in that movie. It felt almost 1-to-1 at that point, almost like a copy and paste, which I do think is also a good and a bad, really more of a bad, because it's like you're also bringing along some of the my issues of Winter Soldier into this, which I saw apparently, which was in that third act, and no, the villain and everything. So I mean, like, it's definitely an enjoyable film. It definitely has its entertainment value. I do think it's better than some most recent MCU films to a certain extent. For me personally, I like, you know, but like I said, I think a lot of people will probably either have a good time with this, or if they're a really big comic book MCU fan like me, they also may be disappointed as well. So I think it's going to be a toss-up. We'll have to see how people react over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I could definitely see this being like received very being kind of polarizing, or just like just getting like a mixed reception from people across the board. Because again, there's a lot that this movie has going for it. Yeah. There are certain things, like I said, that weigh it down. It's definitely not enough to tank the movie by any means, but it's enough to remember. There are flaws that are enough to be remembered for sure. And this, at the end of the day, like I said, it still would have been more impactful if it came out before Avengers Infinity War. And this still kind of feels like a movie that they felt like they had to make. Because, like, we all know what happens to Black Widow in Avengers Endgame. And it feels like, you know, the producers looked at it and be like, fuck, we don't have a solo movie for her. We have to make this. Like, we have to make this. Not that they really wanted to make this. They have to make this.
Yeah.
What I will say before we wrap up the review, the credit scene for Black Widow, I got to say, that was really cool. That was a really good credit scene. I'm actually looking forward to that.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So exactly what they said.
Because that's actually supposed to be when you first see her. Because this movie was to come out before Falcon and Winter Soldier, but because of everything that's going on, they had to delay, and now it's flipped. So if you've seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, you can probably expect who is going to be in this. But yeah, absolutely love that post-credit scene. I'm excited for the future. Okay, I'm not gonna say excited. I'm gonna say semi-excited. Like, I'm cautiously optimistic. That's how I am with the MCU as of right now. So
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And again, for all you guys that are still with us, what exactly did you think of Black Widow? Was it worth the wait? Was it worth all the different delays? all the different teasers like, oh, it's coming out today. Not so much. So whatever thoughts that you have on the matter, you know what to do. Leave your comments wherever it is that you can. Now, before we keep up with our Marvel theme and talk about the trailer for Marvel's What If, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Google Podcasts, Listen Notes, the Podcast Index, Stitcher, and more. And follow our social media pages in that description. Again, another trailer this past week that was released by, I guess, Disney too, because Disney owns Marvel now. The trailer was released for Marvel's What If, which is an upcoming show that explores essential moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe being altered and the unknown waters that are treaded following these changes. And I have to say, it's definitely a really cool concept.
Oh, yes.
It's a really interesting concept. There are, at least from the trailer alone, we get to see, like, we get a sneak peek preview of certain character dynamics that you wouldn't expect to take place. So I'm definitely looking forward to this, at least for the moment. What do you think of what we were shown so far?
Yeah, honestly, when they first announced it, I was like, okay, how is this going to work in animated? But now, after seeing, I'm like, you know what, this is actually cool. I love the What If comic series by Marvel, years ago. And so seeing those stories kind of be brought to life, but in an MCU version, I think is going to be very enjoyable. I think it's going to be very interesting. And there's a lot they can do now that the MCU brand has really established itself 10 years, 12 years in the making now. So I'm actually pretty excited because my initial thought was, oh, they're probably going to do almost an anthology thing where each episode is sort of like dedicated to a character, franchise, and they twist things up. But no, it looks like it's all going to be its own universe and coincide, like they almost have their own Avengers event as well, which made me like, this is bigger than I thought. And I really like that, and I'm really intrigued to see, how, the likes of T'Challa being Star-Lord and Peggy Carter being, Captain America, that sort of thing. Marvel Zombies being introduced, which is awesome. The Watcher being shown, played by Jeffrey Wright, which is absolutely amazing. I'm happier. I'm much more optimistic for this one compared to other MCU films and shows, and I'm really intrigued, to say the least, to see where the creativity lies and to see what they can do in everything. And seeing Spider-Man like as Doctor Strange is freaking awesome. So I'm excited, to say the least.
Touching on what you're saying about Jeffrey Wright playing the Watcher, and again, that's seems to be a relatively new role in comparison to like the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But what I liked about this trailer, or really so far about this show, is how the majority of the performers from the Marvel Cinematic Universe are reprising. Yeah. They're lending their voices for their roles in this series, which I thought was really cool, because I'm watching the trailer and it's got a close up of Thor talking, and I'm thinking to myself, wait, is that actually Chris Hemsworth? Yeah. That sounds a lot like Chris Hemsworth. And then you have T'Challa talking too, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Chadwick Boseman. And I actually read too that his voice performance for this show was his final performance. So, I've got to say, what a way to go out for him. And the only thing that's throwing me off a little bit was Tony Stark not sounding like Robert Downey Jr. Like that definitely threw me for a loop. And I looked it up on IMDb, and I don't think he's returned where he lent his voice for this particular series. I didn't see him listed on IMDb, and it definitely didn't it definitely didn't sound like him in the trailer. But again, I misread the IMDb page, but I didn't see anyone billed to play Tony Stark for this particular series, which I thought was kind of strange. But I also got to say, the animation style does look really cool too. It definitely has like that comic book, like that. It's really weird. Like it definitely feels like a comic book, but then of course it is like 3D animation. So there's the visual style, at least what we're seeing so far, looks really really cool.
I really like the cel shaded look that they're going for. It reminds me of Iron Man Armored Adventures. When that was released on Nickelodeon. So when seeing that was kind of like, I kind of like this art style, because at first I wasn't too keen on it, mainly because I think the animation, when they first revealed it like last year or something, looked a bit jaggy, but now it looked much smoother, and I was like, this looks cool. I like it. So I'm excited for What If. I'm really curious to see how it all is going to interconnect, and this what if storyline and how big it's going to get and throughout the series. So I'm intrigued to say the least, and excited as well because I love the what if storyline.
Now, just out of curiosity, since What If tackles so many moments from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and again, I'm genuinely asking as a question: do you think, or do you know whether or not What If is supposed to set up anything else for the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because we were just talking about with Black Widow, how that credit scene, despite Black Widow kind of being like, an insert movie, like, oh shit, we have to make a movie about Black Widow, it actually does set up a future Marvel Cinematic Universe installment. Do you think that What If is going to do the same thing? Or do you know if What If is going to do the same thing?
I think they will. I think they will. I think they previously were talking about how they are planning on doing more animated shows, which is an interesting. Like, I didn't expect them to essentially say that they're thinking of doing more animated shows. So, I mean, considering that almost the What If, especially the MCU What If, where you watch the trailer and you see how, all these characters are meeting and everything, I think they are going to plan something. I mean, we do know the MCU is going this multiversal route. So they could be like, oh, the what if all of this is going to be in an animated form while everything else is live action, and maybe some weird crossovers here and there. But I think so. I wouldn't say say no. I think they're planning something, and planning something huge, and we're just gonna have to wait and see, really.
Yeah, because it's not like them. It's not like the Marvel Cinematic Universe to have an entry to not set something else up. It's not like them to do that. So I'm curious to see exactly how they're going to weave everything together. The series is currently slated to premiere on Disney Plus on August 11th. And again, if you're a Marvel fan, you had to have seen this trailer for What If. What exactly did you think on what exactly we've seen so far? Leave your comments wherever it is that you can. And now to cap off the show, YouTube film critic Chris Stuckmann announced on his channel that he is directing a feature film based on a group of missing paranormal investigators titled Shelby Oaks. Darius, it was your idea to talk about this particular development. What exactly are you thinking of?
I think this is huge, especially for him, considering that, because I think a lot of people, especially how they title videos and articles, is that YouTuber is now filmmaker, where really is filmmaker becomes YouTuber who's now doing a feature. And I think this is absolutely amazing for him, considering that, his YouTube channel has been mainly revolved around movie reviews and TV reviews and whatnot. But now, and he's always reiterated, my goal is to make a feature film. That's always been his goal. He wants to do a feature film. He's done shorts. We've seen the quality of some of his shorts with Auditorium 6 and I believe it was a
Notes for Melanie.
Notes for Melanie, which I really enjoy. I thought that was hysterical. And so you can see he is talented. You can see he has a passion for this. And seeing that he's now tackling a feature film that's horror based, I'm like, good for him. This is great. And honestly, I'm intrigued by the idea too, to the point where I actually would want to see this. And so
same. I would absolutely want to see this.
So again, I just want to congratulate this man for pouring everything he has into his channel. Everything and his career, and now it's like, it's sort of, it's his time now, and he's finally being able to make a feature of his interest, and I'm excited for this. I'm excited for him as a director and writer in the future. And yeah, I just really wanted to talk about this. I think this is huge. Seeing how some YouTubers are people who are interested in film, they do YouTube, they put their stuff out, and then all of a sudden they're working at they're doing Shazam or whatever, that sort of thing. It's always an interesting story. And so I think this is absolutely great and amazing.
Yeah, because again, he's definitely a channel that I've been watching for a while. I think he definitely knows what he's talking about when it comes to film, based on the reviews that I've seen from him, and just from watching Nuts for Melanie alone, I definitely feel like he has potential. And considering the fact that he's tackling an indie horror, and again, I think I think I may have mentioned this before, when we first said that we were going to talk about this. There's something about indie horror that feels creepier than like regular mainstream and or even big budget horror.
Yep.
I don't know if it's just like a more down to earth feeling, which makes it feel more real. I don't know if it's just the fact that maybe there isn't as much money behind a certain project that makes it feel more gritty, which is why it makes it feel creepier. But either way, I'm definitely very happy for him. It's kind of, he gave, like, while giving this announcement, he definitely gave like a lot of inspirational advice as far as like, just like not giving up, like, not taking the naysayers too much to heart. So I have to say, like, I'm happy for him, and I wish him nothing but the best of luck. And I'm looking forward to what it is that he puts out there now that he definitely has like a big, legit team and like resources to put his vision out there. So, like I said, I'm very, very, very happy for him, and I'm looking to see what he does.
Exactly. And again, the film sounds interesting. It sounds up my alley. So it sounds really cool.
Sounds really cool.
So yeah, I'm definitely down for this film, and just wanted to really say that because again, this type of story, like when you think about it, when you hear people who are on YouTube and now they're like in the industry, it's so interesting because it's like it kind of shows that there are so many different ways that you can approach filmmaking, so many different ways to get yourself out there, that now it doesn't feel as if there's a definitive path to get to where you are, and more of just be out there, that sort of thing. And so I'm excited for this movie too because it sounds interesting, and I'm excited. And he has potential, so it's great to finally see him really being put on that map now. And it's like this is what he can do. So I'm excited.
And it's definitely an inspiration for like the rest of us too, because again, look at just the two of us. We're filmmakers. We plan on being able to do that for a living. This whole movie critique thing, that's not going to be the only thing that we do forever.
Of course.
It's not. So looking at a story like Chris Stuckmann's, it's pretty inspirational. It's nice to see. It's nice to have certain people like kind of in like a similar field as we are, like have that story to look up to and be like, okay, like, there is someone who could do it that way.
Exactly. So I'm excited. And like I said, the film sounds interesting. I'm 100% in to see it. So for sure.
Yeah. So again, for all you guys that are still with us, are you as thrilled by this development as we are? I mean, I don't see how you couldn't be, especially if, you've been watching and paying attention to Chris Stuckmann's channel for as long as Darius and I have. So again, whatever thoughts that you have to have them. Comment, leave them wherever you can. And that's pretty much it for the show. Again, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, YouTube, and so much more. And follow our social media pages in the description. They're there for a reason. And again, tune in next week for our reviews of the complete series of Loki, as well as our thoughts on Space Jam: A New Legacy. God help us all. See you next time.